Go.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our PE Roundtable Part 2. For those of you who are joining us again, thank you for being here. And for those who are joining us for the first time, thank you for joining us. We are going to do things a little differently than the first time. Tonight, we are going to do a 1-hour panel discussion. Our focus this evening is really going to be on our panel and questions that were submitted. Again, you're using the Google form that you can find a link to in the chat to submit all questions. We're not using the chat for questions, so if you could put your questions in there, we're going to use that for our panel tonight. We're going to get into some norms for our panel, but first I just want to take a second to introduce myself. My name is Christine Drado. I'm a physical education teacher at PS 28 Silver, located on the Lower East Side of Manhattan. That's in District 1, and I've been a PE teacher for 10 years. In addition to doing that, I am a graduate professor at Manhattanville College for their physical education program. And I work with my district superintendent's office and the Office of School Wellness, leading PLCs and PLOs. Tonight with me, my co-host is Jim Hamble, and I'm going to give him the chance to introduce himself.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Jim Hamble. Yes, I will be your other co-host for tonight. And I am also a physical education teacher in New York City. I'm at PS 457, which is in the Bronx, District number 9. I have been a phys ed teacher for this will be coming my 9th year. I'm also certified in special ed and childhood ed as well, so I have 2 years of that as well. And I've also done some work for them, the chair of the Shape America Physical Activity Council, and I've won some awards at the New York State AFERD. Super happy to be here tonight. Like Christine was saying, this is our second one. That the amount of output, the amount of feedback we got from the first one was just so positive. We wanted to do it again just because these are certainly uncertain times. And so that's why we're here tonight. So we have our many returning panelists and some new ones. So thank you everyone for being here. Without you, this would not be possible. I just want to say one more thing, that first one we had like 520 people sign up. Last time I checked before we started, I had 670. So thank you everyone for being here and sending in questions. So a lot of the questions you were doing as the kind of the do now will be hopefully be able to answer them tonight. So as you can see on the screen, this is going to be our agenda. We are going to be sticking mostly to the panel format, where they'll be answered questions. We'll have a resource shout later on towards the end. And that's so without further ado, let's introduce our panel.
Before we get started with our panel, just a few norms that we have for our discussion. Tonight, we're asking that you submit your questions again through that Google form and not use the chat box. We're going to direct the questions to different panelists, and they're going to have about 2 minutes to answer. And we're asking that if you are using the chat box, that you keep the conversation positive and productive. I know that there is a lot of feelings and nerves going into this school year. Some of us have already started our school year, and we're here to try to answer questions to the best of our ability and stay positive and not turn it into a venting session. So without further ado, we're going to introduce our action-packed panel here. First up for this evening, we have Dr. Victor Ramsey.
Greetings, everyone. I knew that Brian, Stephanie, and Mike would be here, so I made sure that I wore my open shirt. So I want to make certain that they take feedback that I wore my open shirt. Christine, you're being too modest. Christine, for everyone, I am going to put on blast, is the recipient of the Equity, Diversity, Inclusiveness section of New York State AFERD, recipient of the Amazing People Award. So please join me in giving her some snapping, okay? A well-deserved award. Christine, she's too modest. She do so much for New York City that even today I reached out to her and she was on it like that. I needed to get some information that she shared with us before. So thank you, Christine, for that. So my name is Victor Ramsey, proud member of the Office of School Wellness Programs. I review curricula, facilitate workshops. I've been with the office since its inception more than a decade ago. I've been in the DOE for about 31 years, approaching my 31st year. I am an adjunct assistant professor at York College City University, New York. I'm approaching my 20th year. I just got off the class just before that, so I was late for this panel, Christine. That's why I apologize for that. You did say be on early on. But I'm so happy to be here. I am also a national trainer for Open. I have a blast communicating and sharing the plethora of resources that they have, and I am an advocate of Open throughout my entire DOE facilitations and all that stuff. So I make sure that it's put out there. And thank you so much for the great work that you're doing. And thank you for having me once again.
Thanks for being here, Dr. Ramsey. Next up on our panel, we have Paul Forbes.
So good. Greetings, everyone. My name is Paul Forbes. I am the Executive Director within the Office of Equity and Access in the New York City Department of Education. Victor and I have been colleagues and friends and peers for a number of years. He's in his 31st year. I'm going to my 24th year. And so we've been around for a minute. And again, for those who know at New York City, that's like dog years. So it's like 182 years that we've been in the system. I'm excited to be here. Thank you to Jim and Christine again for the invitation, for the panel, the panelists from last time, and for those who are new to the panel. Our office focus on improving outcomes for all students. Specifically, I'm charged with the implicit bias awareness workshops that we're doing with 130,000 staff members to ensure they go through the implicit bias awareness workshop and begin to have conversations about equity, race, power, privilege, and understanding the beliefs that we have that manifest in behaviors, practices, and policies. And so I'm looking forward to contributing as we should be thinking about equity and access as a through line in all that we do, regardless of the subject or the discipline. So thanks for the invitation to be here. I'm glad to be here with you.
Thank you for joining us, Paul. Next up on the panel, we have Brian Devore.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brian Devore. I am the Open Professional Development Manager and Outreach Manager, retired after 30 years in education, taught at the elementary and middle school levels. I oversaw online programs for 3 years at the high school level for online health and online physical education. So that experience has served me well over the last 6 to 8 months with helping teachers who are all of a sudden thrust into the virtual education department. So I've also served as a 2-time president of Georgia AFERD, as well as president of Southern District for Shape America.
Thank you, Brian. Next up on our panel, we have Stephanie Dixon.
Hi, everybody. I'm Stephanie Dixon, and I'm from Kansas City, Kansas. And I am the instructional coach for K through 12 physical education for 23,000 kids in our district. And I'm super excited. This is my second time doing this. It's just an awesome opportunity to see people that I follow on Twitter and that I have high respect for. And I am also an Open National Trainer. So happy to be here tonight.
Thank you, Stephanie. Next up on our panel, we have Jason Leach.
Yes, my name is Jason Leach. I'm going in my 28th year of teaching. I'm currently in Independence Elementary School in Keller ISD, which is in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. We're just north of Fort Worth. We just started teaching in person this week with students, and I'm also Open National Trainer, and I'm filling in for Jason Steele tonight. I tried to grow the beard, but I just couldn't get it in time.
Thank you, Jason.
Awesome. Thank you for being here. And we have Mike Morris.
I'm Mike Morris. I've just started my 7th year teaching. I currently teach at 2 schools in Rocky Mount, North Carolina, as well as I teach health online for the early college, high school. I'm an Open National Trainer, innovator, and I'm currently maneuvering the ins and outs of virtual learning.
Wonderful. Thank you for being here tonight. And next we have Dan Dieger.
Hi, Dan Dieger. I am in Sacramento, California. It's my 21st year teaching high school physical education, currently at an independent study school. So remote learning, that kind of thing is not entirely new to me, but this whole situation is very new. to all of us, and I'm very excited to be here.
Awesome. Thank you for being here tonight. And up next, we have Lisa Paulson.
Hey everybody, Lisa. I teach in the physical education teacher education program at the University of Minnesota Duluth. Prior to my work in higher ed, this is my third year there. I taught elementary health, PE, adaptive PE, a little bit of everything. I am just excited. I know we all missed out on Salt Lake City, and other professional development opportunities are virtual, so I'm just excited to hopefully for you all and myself to leave here rejuvenated and excited to share with our colleagues tomorrow about what we learned.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us for the first time. And last but not least, we have Mr. Matthew Bassett.
Hi, everybody. I'm excited to be here. My name is Matthew Bassett. I am a nationally board certified teacher, my 20th year teaching. I'm at a K-8 school called San Jose Charter Academy. We're outside of Los Angeles. In my spare time, I am also an adjunct professor for Cal State Long Beach. I'm active in both my capered organization, my state organization, Shape America, and I am the 2021 director-elect for the K-8 Physical Education Workshop in Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo.
Great. Thank you for joining us this evening. All right, without further ado, we're going to dive right into our panel questions. So again, if you have a question, you can use the Google form. The link is in the chat. We'll keep sharing it, and we'll get to those questions throughout the evening. So our first question that we have is, what are your ideas for reaching low socioeconomic status students or students who lack connectivity or devices? And I'm going to give that question to Jason first.
You said to Jason, me?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, for the connectivity with our district, what I really like is that all our basically K through 4 students are getting new iPads to have for, even if they're on campus or in remote, they're all getting that. I'm not sure about if they're lacking connectivity or whatever, but I like how our district is reaching out to all their students so they have that access in their hands with iPads. And they can use these iPads when they come. If I need them for some use in PE, they can take them to PE, art, music, so they have them with them at all times. And they can take it home with them also.
That's great. Does anybody else on the panel want to jump in and answer that question? Go ahead, Mike.
So I have to provide options for everyone. So students have the option to either get online, or we have to provide a remote option because most parents work during the day and they can't be on Zoom during school hours. And we also have to provide
out of it early, but it's going to get old pretty quick. And we're not going to be able to hold them accountable if they have cameras. Minutes a day of physical, but as Stephanie alluded to with FitnessGram, okay, you can utilize the FitnessGram resources, do the assessment at home on your own, and then when we come together for a Zoom, I'm going to have some different activities for them to do, or discussions that we have that can, talk about goal setting. Okay, you did this. Now, how do you set a goal? Well, what kind of goal do you want to set? Well, let's talk about a SMART goal or whatever acronym you want to use. So I think that the physical education teachers need to start to utilize, and I hate to say this, almost like more traditional type of a classroom setting when they're asked to deliver these synchronous lessons to their students, as opposed to being fitness instructors and exercising all day with their students. I mean, there's so many things we can do from discussions about goal setting to social and emotional learning to having discussions about different topics that are going on, that I think that's the direction that we need to head to in this age that we're in right now.
Well said, Brian. Thank you. Our next question is going to go to Dan first. It is, what are some safety measures that can be taken for in-person classes?
Okay, so obviously with safety, we automatically think about physical safety, but there's an emotional safety piece here that's important as well. And we're all in very different environments. So the guidelines that you have in your school site, the guidelines that you have in your district obviously need to be followed first. And so that's going to be independent upon that. We're kind of told what to do. But the point I'd like to kind of focus on is the emotional safety, providing students options, making sure that a student is never ever embarrassed in a situation, making sure it's always a positive experience. Whenever somebody asks me, what's your goal in physical education? I say, it's for students to not hate physical activity. So ask yourself that question. Anything you do, if it's ever going to embarrass them, if it's going to be unsafe in any way, you probably don't want to do it. So is it safe? Are they learning? Are they engaged? That's where you want to be.
Great, thank you. Anybody else from the panel want to jump in on that question?
And we need to bring back fun. I know the fun word in some school districts is a bad F word, but fun is awesome. Kids want to be in our class, and it's mostly driven by us. And so we need to bring the F back in fun and really be, even though we're not face to face, but we really need to bring back the fun. And that's what I'm hoping that we're gonna do in our district, because, you know, I know that our kids in the springtime had like 33% more PE opportunities. They came to our physical education classes 33% more than any other class online in our virtual world that we did in the spring. And that's huge. That's what we need to be doing. So.
Yes, thank you, Stephanie. All right, our next question is going to go to Matthew and Lisa, and anybody else who would like to jump in can jump in after that. What role does social and emotional learning play in our re-entry or reopening of school? Is there a difference based on how you start and progress through the year?
I think for me, social emotional is the foremost of what's going on. What's happened in education is we've never had to go through this before. So we're having to reacclimate our students to being in class and getting them to get in a new norm. Teaching virtually is a bit challenging. So I'm creating things from fresh. Instead of my 20 years of experience, I'm at my first year again, just like all of us are. So to me, the social and emotional is the most important part. Trying to get people into your virtual setting at the same time has been a challenge. For one of my classes yesterday, it took me 25 minutes to take roll and get everybody on. In the past, I would be very criticized and would hate myself for taking that long. But let's be honest, we're having internet issues. Kids have lives that we don't know about at home. And then I'm just doing very simple little things. I want them to come back, and I want them to do activities that make them think like they matter as they do. And the social and emotional, I think, is going to be what drives our instruction for the next year at least.
Great. Thank you, Matthew. Lisa?
Yeah, nicely said. I think that, I think it always has been the most important thing, even though it hasn't always been highlighted, right? We've been a little bit more highlighting SEL in the last year or two, especially with Health Moves Minds, which, by the way, has a lot of great content that you should be hopefully implementing. But, now more than ever, and using this as an advocacy piece for how important is health and physical education, and who else is checking in with them, right? Does their math teacher come in and say, how are you feeling today? Fist of 5, where are you at with your stress? Or let's start with a mindful minute. No other teachers are doing the stuff that we're doing. And I just feel like now is a really important time to highlight that SEL and use it as an opportunity not only to go to your administrators and say, what can I be doing for our students? But here's all the things I wanted to really know that are important, and that's going to resonate with them, and let's just use this as an opportunity to be so important. We can't focus so much on some of the standards right now, but we can focus on 4 and 5 a lot, and I think that Health Moves Minds especially is going to do a really good job with helping you out with that. Good place to start.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. We're going to have some more on Health Move Minds towards the end, so thank you for bringing that up. Does anybody else on the panel want to answer this question before we move on?
Yes, I just want to add real quickly, Matthew, thank you so much for being so humble and saying, hey, look, I got 20 years experience, but it's like I'm a first year teacher. I agree wholeheartedly with that. I think that especially for new teachers, anyone, but for anyone, we don't understand social emotional learning, there's nothing wrong with going back to the drawing board and learning more about it and be able to implement it and understanding it plays a vital role with our students, especially now. And the question also talked about throughout the year. So I heard someone say checking in. I think that's great. That's another great opportunity to check in as well. And I just wanted to add that because I know that it plays a vital role. I mean, throughout the entire time. And I think that going back, reading up on it, understanding it, applying some of the resources out there, trying them out, and definitely will be a plus. So thank you for being humble enough to share that. And I like that term, emotional safety, that was shared earlier by Dad. Thank you so much for sharing that as well.
Thank you, Dr. Ramsey. Anybody else want to jump in before we move on?
Sure. At Open, we recognized how SEL was going to be so critical that we actually designed with Executive Director Aaron Hart. He utilized the CASEL standards, core competencies, and created priority learning outcomes for social and emotional learning that could be integrated within physical education. So and within all of our resources, those are going to be integrated throughout the entire school year through all of the different resources. So I think it's a focus that everyone has and everyone recognizes it's important. And the bottom line as physical educators is we can't shy away from that discussion. When the topic of social and emotional learning comes up within staff meetings or school district meetings, we have to be the people who step up and speak up, because we should be the experts in that field. We're the only content area that has learning standards and outcomes that are related directly to social and emotional learning. So don't shy away from that conversation, chip in on that conversation and offer what you're doing and be an advocate for the social and emotional learning piece.
Thank you, Brian.
Oh, sorry. I also feel like that social emotional learning also comes to us too, because we also need to take care of ourselves, because if we don't take care of ourselves, we are not going to be influencers and great role models for our kiddos. Look at those CASEL components and things like that for us and be willing to help and reach across the table and across the aisle to help our other classroom teachers and PE teachers and nutritional service and everybody, just to check in with them too, because this is, a really weird, crazy time, and we got to take care of ourselves. Because we're not really, as teachers, we're not really good about doing that sometimes.
Very true. Thank you, Stephanie. All right, we're going to move on to the next question. I'm wondering if anyone attending tonight has actually started school yet, and if so, what form of teaching are you doing, and how's it going? And that is going to go out to Dr. Ramsey first. We haven't started teaching yet, but if you want to jump in there and give any answer.
Sure. The first advice that I would give, although we have not started yet, and of course there's been they've changed the dates for us to open up schools, and now we're talking about central office personnel be deployed to schools to support these schools. Right off the cuff, I would say I would take a page from Stephanie's book on the fact that we need to have a locus of control and checking ourselves first. Make certain that we are well equipped emotionally and otherwise to move forward. There's also the big controversy with the accommodations for teachers with underlying health issues. So that is going to bring about some stress on administrators and so on. So the one advice as far as beginning or to start that I will share is the one that I just stated. Taking care of ourselves first and foremost, making sure that we prepare ourselves in a manner in which it's not going to be cumbersome or overwhelming. Brian alluded to the resources that Open have. I will endorse that immediately and say, I'm going to take this material, apply this, and make that part of my preparation process for getting Open or getting things started in the school year. So that's the only piece I have to add, because I'm not in the school per se, but I do support, of course, teachers, and I look forward to helping out wherever I can, especially our new teachers who are quite nervous for the most part. Everyone, but mostly new teachers.
Thank you, Dr. Ramsey. Anybody else from the panel want to take that question?
I'll go.
Jason and then Paul.
What?
Jason, you want to go, and then Paul?
Yeah, I'll go. I was last week going and talking to my principal, what are my expectations are, and he says, when you're in the gym, we need a 5x5 grid. I need checkerboard formation. They need to stay in that in the gym. And I started thinking about all the things that I can't do. And I just sat there and I said, I'm gonna think about what I can do. And I just started looking at this 5x4 square and just realized, okay, I'm gonna put this 3-foot plus sign, green tape. I'm gonna label it. We can do agility jumps. We're gonna do different things. But my main focus is when school students came in Monday and we started looking at this, and I saw that same panic look in their face about this is where we have to be when we're inside. I said, okay, I want your ideas. Students got great ideas. And so I told them, I said, I want you to tell me what we can do in this square. What are some options? What are things that you can think of? They've already started coming up with some good things. You just turn it back on them, empower them to take over and give you some ideas. And that's what kind of helps my mindset and change it when you reach out to the students and see what their thoughts are.
Well said. Thank you, Jason. Paul, did you want to share?
No, sorry. I didn't.
Oh, okay. I thought you had to. Anybody else want to share on the panel before we move on? All right.
All right, great answers. Let's move on to the next one. So, can you provide some best practices for PE, either in remote or blended? All right, so Dan, will you start us off with this one?
Sure. I teach in a remote learning setting, so that's kind of where I'll focus it. So no matter what setting you're in, listen to students. Where are they coming from? I do surveys with the students to send it out over Google Forms. Also in the chat, I'll ask questions, see where they're coming from, what obstacles are they running into in these times, what's preventing them from exercising. Right now we have a lot of smoke in California, and then giving them alternatives and solutions so that I can meet them where they are. So, you know, I designed like a little card game that I use with my students. And so, you know, kind of gamify it, make it fun, right? That's what Stephanie would say, make it fun. Gamify it, make it fun. But we have this unique opportunity now to do what we've never been able to do before. We get to go in students' homes. So we get to bridge the gap between the physical education class and the real life world. And so it's not just keeping track of physical activity. It's not just showing them what to do. It's telling us, it's helping them get through it in the real world. What do you have available in your community? What do you have in your home to stay physically active? And then not just the physical activity piece, but the social emotional learning piece as well, getting to know each other, you know, talking about those things. But then going back to what Lisa was saying, checking in. Check in with your kids, build connections with your students. You can still have clubs. We're running a dance team right now that I'm running. I have a board game club. Is it physical education related? No, but they see me in a different environment. We build those connections, and kids now more than ever, especially in remote learning, they need those connections. So just find ways to bring those in.
No, that's a great answer. No, lots of great things to said. Paul, did you want to? Oh, you okay?
No, I'm good.
Okay, good. I'm going to jump in. Mike, what are your thoughts on that?
So, like he said, going into students' home and showing them how they can use things that are inside of their home to be physically active. I think my YouTube channel is a pretty good example of that. And just I try to make it as fun as possible, because if I get bored doing it, then they're not going to enjoy it. So I want them to come back on every week. So one thing that I always say in a Google post when I post is, we're going to have fun. And I think that's a major thing about teaching remotely, making it fun.
No, I agree. Yeah, I like what you said though. I mean, like, because sometimes like I try to do it that way. Like if I'm not enjoying it, I don't know if they're going to enjoy it. So that's empowering. So here's kind of mostly for the teachers that are in person. And it's going to be open to anyone. What are some ways that you're managing, you know, having students keep their masks on or wearing masks while they're in class?
I can go on. When we're in the gym, it's required that they wear the mask. And so I'm keeping the activities very kind of low, so I don't have to breathe hard and stuff like that. So and we're in Texas, so it was hot the beginning of the week, and so we couldn't go outside. Now it's cool, a little bit cooler in the 80s, but it's raining. So once we can go outside, the rule is that all the students are given a lanyard that they have to wear, and they hook it onto their mask. And so when they take their mask off, it just stays on their lanyard. So it's easy to take off and put back on when they enter the building. So that's kind of the protocols we have to follow. So I'm hoping whenever it stays cool or the rain's gone, that when we go outside, it's just easier to go outside so when they take their masks off and do the skills we're working on.
That makes sense. Anyone else want to jump in?
Before I forget, I just thought about something about social emotional learning that I wanted to share with this group. And someone is pending to send me this article that was written about the usage of the temperature measuring gun, and how the author talks about it desensitizes students or young people with the fact that you're pointing some type of device to their heads, in addition to the detriments of whatever the device has with our brain or something like that. So if anybody come across that article, he's been so busy, totally forgot he's traveling and forgot to sit back and send it to me. But if you come across something regarding that, please, by all means, share it out, because I think it's important in light of what's happening with shootings and other things. We need to be extremely cautious of that as well. So when I heard that, it triggered me. I said, wow, I never thought of something like that. So imagine a kid coming up to the school building and they're getting that. I just want to remind you of that piece, if anybody come across. I apologize for going back on the other question, but I didn't want to forget that.
No, I think Dr. Ramsey, you said a good point about, and also you kind of touched upon not just the mask part, but the temperature checks in part, which I think Jason was alluding to. You know, in some places where it's super warm, that could also allude to it as well. So I think it kind of bridged both. Anybody else have any thoughts on this question before we move on to the next one?
Sure. So Jason's solution is what I've seen most across the nation, but it also brings about some things when and if you do go face-to-face, some things that you need to consider, or when you start the school year, not only the masks, and I'd like to hear from Jason also. I mean, a lot of schools have turned off their water fountains, so students have to bring water bottles and carry those wherever they go. So that's a whole nother aspect to manage when you're face-to-face in your gymnasiums. So Jason, do the students bring water bottles also? And if so, how do you manage that situation too?
Yes, they do bring water bottles because our water fountains are closed. We have water bottle refill stations. Because we're in that checkerboard formation, we take that water bottle and put it in the open square that's in front of them. And then they're just allowed to, as they need it, pull down their mask real quick, get a drink. We kind of stop and give them a water break anyway to teach them, hey, we need to stay hydrated. And then we haven't had a chance to go outside to see what that's going to look like, but pretty much the kind of same thing. Probably be outside, space them out, and stuff like that. So right now it's just moving in the box in front of them.
No, that's definitely a great answer. So moving on for our next question, and this one's, how are you addressing inequities and systemic racism within your PE/your practice? Paul, would you take this one, please?
Sure. I mean, I'm interested to hear what folks are doing on the ground that's in the field. But, you know, I heard earlier, I think it was, I think maybe it was Brian who mentioned that we could, in terms of SEL, we can't shy away from this, right? We need to have these conversations. I've been saying this about this idea about racism, inequities. This isn't unique to one group or the other. It's not the social studies teachers that do this, not the English teachers that do it. We all have to lean in and have this conversation. And I think now more than ever, there's like the perfect storm right now, right? I can't imagine any pedagogue, any teacher, any social worker, counselor who is working with young people and or families that's not going to speak about what's happening, what Dr. Ramsey just brought up about culturally relevant, if you're not being cognizant of what's going on around us, then we're missing the mark, right? And this should not be unique to say only you, the counselor, you're the ones that do social emotional stuff and everybody else does something else. This is for all of us, right? We are living in a time right now that if we do not have these conversations, then I say shame on us. And I don't care what your role is or what the title might be, we have to be willing to speak about what we're seeing, and not just us, but speaking about what our young people are seeing, because they're going to wonder, well, what message are we sending when we don't speak about, especially again, PE, we're talking about physical education, and we just watched and saw a number of the whole sporting world shut down in protest against social inequities, a social justice movement. I mean, for me, using sports, that's almost a layup, right? We can take that and say, hey, we're gonna have a conversation and let's just unpack what you've been seeing and hearing, because we'll be foolish to think that our young people are not hearing and seeing. I have elementary school teachers who have said to me, some of their students have participated in Black Lives Matter marches, uprising, protests. We're seeing this on TV. We turn on we pick up our phone and we're seeing it everywhere. So it'd be very hard for me to say, oh, this isn't, stay in your lane, this isn't part of your work. And so I would encourage that if you are not, and if you have not been thinking about how we're gonna incorporate, I would encourage you to think about that as we're connecting with, whether you're doing, someone said they're playing with, a board game may not be PE, but it's a way to connect. We can't use social emotional learning and use it when it's convenient for us and avoid certain conversations. We need to lean in, and you might say, well, I'm not ready for that. Then there's some work that you have to do, right? And I think that's important. I think we all have to be leading this, and we all have to be involved in this conversation. So I'm gonna, for the time, since we only have 6 hours, I'm gonna pause there with that, because I know there's some other, but I'm gonna drop an article that I was contacted by a reporter a couple days ago, and I spoke about what needs to be done. It has some resources in there. If you're saying, I don't know how to do this, I'm gonna put some resources in the chat, and I'm sure I'll come back with a question that might relate to this later. So I'm gonna put that in there.
Thank you, Paul. No, and I fully agree. And I saw someone Bethany put in to add on to that, says that all education really needs to be holistic and not just a social emotional. And we're very fortunate that I can speak from experience. I've taught classes that I have students that aren't just English speakers, it's trilingual. So a lot of things we teach is sport and exercise is kind of like that universal language. Yeah. So that's a good, that's definitely a good way to think about it. So
I think that, and Paul, one thing you mentioned that kind of stuck with me, you talked about the teachers not being ready to have that conversation, and that's entirely possible. I think though that depending on what part of the country that you live in, because I can share with you, I think probably in the state of Georgia, there's probably not one school district that has the position that you have in the city of New York schools. So, that I'm sure there are plenty of teachers who are ready to have that conversation and dive into that topic with their students.
Yep.
But if they don't feel like they have support from their school district in having that discussion, and it's going to be a discussion that's going to wind them up sitting in front of the school board or sitting in front of the superintendent, then that's where, I mean, I've been in that position. That's where teachers have that fine line that they have to walk. I totally agree with you wholeheartedly, but I think that there's some other external pressures, I guess, on a lot of teachers who would be outstanding at having those conversations and guiding, students through getting in touch with their feelings about those particular situations, but they feel like they're playing with both hands tied behind their back because they're not going to get that support.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Paul. Go ahead.
I want to say that, I understand. And I know there was another question that came in specifically about some of the things that we're seeing. I got to tell you, I mean, folks, we're speaking about a new normal. We're speaking about creating something different, and is this a time You know, I encourage people all the time, especially before the school year, I tell folks, read Dr. King's letter from Birmingham jail and talk about why we can't wait and the sense of urgency and people who have used wait as a way in which to keep a status quo. And good intention, well-meaning people can fall into a thing to say, well, I'm not, and I speak from experience from folks in New Jersey, right over the river here in New Jersey, where I have a district I've been working with this summer, just the last couple of months, where the principal said exactly what you said, Brian. I have to be careful. I didn't want to put anything out after George Floyd. And then after this, I had to be careful. I wanted the district. And we had a conversation. And he realized about not just the professional imperative he has, but the moral imperative, because his thing was, as I said to him, there are other people. You have colleagues who are looking to see what's going to happen one way or the other. And it's important that we take a stand, that it's not just about these charismatic leaders that we hear about or we read about. The question is, when we have these challenges, what will you do in that moment? Don't look at the black and white movies and documentaries and Eye on the Prize and say, wow, they did this. John Lewis just passed away, and we have a whole legacy of John Lewis. So I agree. I hear what you're saying. And there are some people who are not ready, and that's strategic, in my opinion. But we are the ones that's going to be people going to say, no, I'm going to stand up and I'm going to take a stand. And if we don't do this, I'm going to say again, shame on us. And I think there's enough of us to do it, but there's so many people who are like, I'm going to wait and see before I do it. And you know who loses out? Our young people, who will then grow up and continue on and say, wait a minute, this conversation never occurred in my middle school or in my high school. And then we look back and say, what opportunities did we miss? So I agree, and I understand that pressure. And we can have a whole panel discussion
Right.
about just that alone. Believe me, we could go on with that, but I'm gonna encourage us to take that stand and say, where am I willing to take a stand to push in, to begin to disrupt and dismantle and be the one to, for our future, for a better tomorrow, that we're gonna do what we need to do, because it has to be done.
Well, to challenge the status quo,
Absolutely.
which is one of the core values of open.
Amen.
I just want to say this in 1 minute, because I know that we're pressing for time as well. What teachers can do immediately, to your point, we're fortunate in New York City that we're able to provide this type of training for teachers. And in fact, we did have some pushback because, to your point, Brian, there are teachers who also weren't prepared for this type of conversation. So therefore, it took a while, and we're embedding this in trainings and preparing teachers and getting teachers ready for this conversation. And just so you know, UCLA did a study in which they talked about New York City being the most diverse in the country, yet remains the most segregated to date. And I think I've said that in the previous panel. But in the meantime, we as educators need to be prepared to answer questions from students and validate their feelings. Validate their feelings as it pertains to this type of conversation. But more importantly, making certain that the language, the graphics that we use, the music that we use, everything is culturally relevant to make that case, because Brian is correct. Everybody in the country don't have that type of leeway, that type of opportunity, Brian. So well stated, and I appreciate you sharing that, because this is what this type of forum is good for us to be able to share ideas and how we can get around respectfully without stepping on any authorities' toes and so on, to get the message to our students. So thank you. That was 59 seconds.
Great job getting it in there. Those are all great points, and as somebody said before, we could probably have a panel discussion just on these conversations. But for essence of time, I just want to move on to the next question. Paul, you kind of alluded to this one coming down. It is on the topic. Have teachers displayed or talked about Black Lives Matter? If so, what has been the response? We have had some pushback when teachers displayed some Black Lives Matter signs in their About Me introductions. We have been told not to display anything or talk about it unless it's tied to the curriculum.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I want to be respectful of the time, and so I'm going to try to keep this within. But I'm saying, folks, this is just good pedagogy. There's an article by Gloria Ladson-Billings that, again, I could find and drop in there. If you've got Gloria Ladson-Billings, and this is just good teaching, this isn't unique for you to say, oh, I only speak about this at this moment in time, or this person is the one who does this. If all that I was hearing y'all speak about is just good pedagogy, connecting with students, checking in with them, seeing your feeling. If you're any teacher should be speaking that way. It shouldn't be unique to only this person or to the special ed teacher that does that. It's the counselor who does it. No, we all should be doing about getting to learn and meet one another. And what I would argue is, when someone says, I want to know about who you are, tell me who you are. Part of who you are, if this is who you are, is an equity warrior, is a social justice warrior, the person who believes in equity and fairness. And so if I'm saying, again, when I think back to folks who, in the 50s and 60s, who would you be when the Little Rock Nine, when they're walking in, are you foaming at and fronting at the mouth and screaming and saying, get out of here, we don't want black people, we don't want this? Most people say, no, that wouldn't be me. I can't believe that happened. But the question is, what are you doing now in these moments? So my thing is, if you can't explain and understand what Black Lives Matter is, if you don't have that learned, I'm going to ask you, Google it. Go find out what the platform is for Black Lives Matter. Not just watch a news report and say, oh, I heard it's this and it's violence. And folks, we have to do our due diligence and we have to do our learning. So my thing is, if you are a teacher, if you can express that part of my work, Gloria Ladson-Billings, academic rigor, cultural competence, and social political awareness, if we can't speak to that as part of what we do as a teacher, then we have work that we have to do. And we've been talking about doing that self-work, putting the mask on first. And I think now more than ever, in a pandemic, when we've seen 185,000 people die, when they expect another 120-something,000, when we see the division that's in this country, when we hear about the unrest, when we hear about the uprising, when we hear the marches, if we can't and don't have these conversations, if we can't figure this out, if we can't stand and say, no, we are going to stand, and this is who we are as educators, then I'm fearful of what we're going to see for the next generation. Because this is a moment, and there's some on-ramps, as I say in the article, there's some places that we could go in right now and talk about John Lewis, the youngest speaker at the march 57 years ago, the youngest speaker at the March in Washington. And what did he say? What did Dr. King say? Who was this person? What happened? Why doesn't LeBron James want to continue playing? Why did the NFL say that we're going to now have this? And what is this thing about Black Lives Matter being written? It's right here in our faces. If we can't discuss that, then I wonder what is going on and what is our purpose in the profession that we have been charged. So I would argue and say, again, there was someone, Mark, from Colorado, reached out to me about this topic. We had a conversation. He could tell you it was a good hour and change. We've chatted, texting, DMs, because this is an ongoing conversation. But I believe that we must do this if we're looking to change and create a better tomorrow and a new normal.
And perhaps, Paul, as you alluded to earlier, we can't just utilize that social and emotional learning piece when it's convenient. And I think, as the second part of the question said, Christine, we've been told not to display anything or talk about it unless it's tied to the curriculum. Well, that's the social part of the social and emotional learning. And it gets emotional too with a lot of folks. So, I mean, I think, as I spoke about earlier, if we're going to be the experts in the social and emotional learning and we need to step up about it, then perhaps, Paul, that's the avenue for us to take. That's how we tie it to the curriculum and say, hey, there's nothing more involved socially and emotionally right now than, whether it be Black Lives Matters or, whatever, movement happens to be going on at the time. It's a thing where, we need to discuss it because it is pertinent and it's part of what's going on with our students, and it affects them every day when they walk in the school building. I mean, a lot of students it's going to be part of their lives and first and foremost in their mind, depending on what happened the night before in a city that may be, close to you or nearby to you. Yep. So if we just hide from it, then it's not going to solve any problems, and it's not going to make our school community any better.
Appreciate it. It's better to be prepared because our kids, if you develop relationships with kids are going to ask you as a safe adult how you feel, what's your take on it, and to do a little of learning ourselves to prepare when those conversations happen instead of just fly off the cuff. We need to educate ourselves. And Paul, thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Paul. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. We're really lucky in New York City to have Paul and his office doing the work that we're doing. So we're part of this daily. So thank you for that. In the essence of time, I just want to say there is a few questions that we have been getting that I think I can kind of address quickly. and Brian and Open, you can probably jump in. A lot of the questions that we seem to be getting tonight are about resources, activities, ideas. One in specific that we got was, I thought about creating a virtual running club for my students and staff, suggestions, software, apps, or anything that you can use. I can say personally that I use New York Roadrunners. We have Rising Stars. I've started a running club for our kids through that and our staff. They also had some resources on Open as well. So that's just one idea for a running club if you want to check out. But for resources, activities, ideas, Open is a great website that you can get a lot of ideas, both for inside the classroom, inside the gymnasium, or if you're doing remote or you're doing in person, they have everything. So we'll share their link in the chat if anybody wants to just jump in quickly on that. And then we're going to move on to a quick resource share out. All right, Jim, go ahead, take it away.
All right. No, I also want to say, Paul, I didn't get a chance to do it. I want to make sure I do it too. And being from New York as well. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Dr. Ramsey. Everything. I'm so fortunate as well, just as Christine succinctly said it, to have access to that and to have you on our side with that. I could also say I love New York Runners. Their programs are great. I love if you have a chance to do it, they have track and field, which is for starting in 3rd grade, which is amazing. There are actually a lot of incentives that's actually how I'm getting into running. So that's perfect. So speaking of social emotional learning and speaking of great resource share, I am very pleased, very excited to have 2 ladies who are just amazing neighbors to us in New Jersey, Miss Michelle Huff, Miss Judy Lobianco, who need no introduction. They're going to be here to talk to us about another great Shape America resource, who just Shape and Open have just been my 2 of my favorite resource places to go to during this time. So I'm going to introduce them. They're going to talk about Health Moves Minds, which is a great resource for social emotional learning that every teacher can use. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you. Thank you. Just real quick, because it's getting late, and I would just listen to Paul for the rest of the evening, because that's a man that can take you from fear to victory in a half an hour. So thank you, Paul. Yeah, just one more tool for your toolbox is this program from Shape America that's standards-based and includes lessons K through 12 around being able to get kids to think about empowerment and kindness and mindfulness and better breathing and self-advocacy. It's got lessons in it that help teachers with accommodations, modifications, even suggestions for equitable groupings, because we've been talking a lot about that tonight. And I know it is late, so I want to just pitch to Michelle Huff, who's been hanging out with us. She's been using the program. It's more important that you hear what her kids say than to listen to me. So Michelle, maybe you just share one story about what you've done with this program with your kids. And shout out to the Jersey kids that are out on the boxes. Hey, Anna from Hamilton. Go ahead, Michelle, sorry.
Of course. So just going off what you just said and what Paul said, it really is all about building that relationship, and the kids need to know you care. So once you know and have that relationship built, they'll come to you. I mean, our kids haven't even started school today, and they're coming to me, asking me, I'm calling around the schools to make sure they have technology to use. So these are the things in the rapport that you build, and a lot of these skills that Health Moves Minds teaches our children are skills that they could utilize in their everyday life, and it empowers them. So it empowers them to advocate for themselves, to be able to speak up for themselves and go to trusted adults and people that they care about. Also, it advocates for them to speak on testimonies that they've gone through at such a young age. Like, I teach middle schoolers, and they want other middle schoolers to know, listen, like, I've been in that spot, I've been where I felt alone, and you know, there is help out there. And those all go along with social emotional learning and, you know, empowering one another and kindness and love. And like, that's what's going to bring our world together. At the end of the day, you want to lead with love, you want to practice what you preach, and just lead by example. And that's what Health Moves Minds all about. So thanks for letting me share a little bit. And my kids love it. They love doing service learning projects, and you know, just they don't have much, but it doesn't matter because they have love and they have that in their heart, and they want to give to others what they do have. So that's what it's all about.
Thank you, ladies, for sharing that out. Michelle, actually, next Wednesday, we'll be doing a Health Moves Minds in Motion at 8 o'clock, part of the Wellness Wednesday series. I'm going to put the link to register. It's free, so you can check it out if you want to know more about it. Check it out on Twitter. She and Jody have been, talking about it, doing all kinds of things that are not just great for the students, but also great for you, too. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing about that. All right, Christine.
Yes, just a quick thank you. We want to say thank you to everyone who joined us tonight for our PE Roundtable Part 2. A huge thank you to our panelists tonight for, again, great conversations, great answers to questions. Thank you to Judy and Michelle for sharing out about Health Moves Minds. And before we go tonight, Jim, you want to just close it out?
Yeah, I want to say thank you, too. Like I said, we wouldn't be able to do this without you and our guests and attendance. So I'm going to ask the panelists just to give a quick, kind of closing remark, kind of just parting words of wisdom for us.
Just quickly, I'm going to say, last week we saw, just a couple of days ago, with all the deaths that we have, when we saw Chadwick Boseman, and we saw Cliff Robinson from the Portland Trailblazers, people, John Thompson. I mean, these are some of the people I grew up with or I saw, contemporaries. It makes you think, right? Because when you start putting names to, again, loss of life, 2020 has been tough. And I always say for every session I do, Jim knows, he's been in a couple of sessions, I close out, I always say, folks, tomorrow is not promised to you. It's not promised to me. Be good to one another. Love one another, care for one another, appreciate one another. What Michelle just said is going to resonate. At the end of the day, if you don't have, it's not about the material. You can show love. We all have that. Love one another, appreciate one another, and let's make a better tomorrow, a new normal. Appreciate y'all.
I'll jump in. Back a couple of weeks ago at Open, we had a day that we called Go Be Great Day, because we realized that teachers all across the nation, whether they be physical education teachers or any other teachers, were working harder and stressed and kind of at their wits' end more than ever before, just because of all the last minute changes and switching from face-to-face to virtual and having to disinfect equipment and all these different things that they were having to consider. And it was just an outpouring from the physical education community of support to each other. That was, to be honest with you, I read through some of the different posts on social media, and it brings a tear to your eye, the way that people were connecting with each other and telling each other, hey, we got this. Hey, I'm here for you to help you if you need help. Don't be afraid to reach out. And so a couple things from that. First of all, don't be afraid to reach out to other people. If you feel lost, like you don't know how to navigate your learning management system, reach out to someone in your district, reach out to another teacher. There's a million Facebook groups on how to work with the different learning platforms. Reach out to try and find help and find assistance. And as Stephanie alluded to at the beginning too, and Victor also talked about, take care of yourselves too. Set aside that time to, disengage. We're all sitting in front of the computers way more than we ever have before. Take time to take that technology break and disengage, do something, with your family, take care of yourselves, take care of your own mental health and physical health, and go be great this school year.
Yeah, and I'll just echo a little bit. Well said, Paul. Tomorrow's not promised, and neither are the guidelines and the rules that you were maybe just told yesterday will be in place tomorrow. Also like Jason said, what can I do, right? Because it is so easy once those rules change on you and you have plan B or C that we're already on, and then plan D and E and F come along. Still just keeping that positive attitude and reaching out to others to help stay positive, using that self-care to help stay positive, and trying to go into work tomorrow with an attitude of what can I do, and hoping to spread that positivity.
A young, brilliant mind in my office and good friend, Ronnie Rodriguez, shared today during one of our Zooms that he said, I don't need a certification to teach what's in my heart. And I thought about Michelle's comment about the love that children have. I might have said this in the last meeting we had, but many of you around this group are too young to remember a situation that happened in New York City, and I shared that, hopefully I did think I shared that the last time. Growing up in Brooklyn, in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, Mayor Dinkins at the time was the mayor when there was an unrest because of ambulance hit and killed a young Guyanese kid. And there was a Jewish community ambulance that that had that accident. And there was a whole political unrest around the fact that their precinct came and asked let the ambulance go, leave the scene of the crime. And that left a deep hole in that community. But as I grew up and saw things around there, I saw young kids just playing with one another, the black kid with a Jewish kid, with a Latino kid. And I tapped my friends and I said, look at this, man. These kids don't know racism and isms and schisms. Is what we instill in them and what we teach them. So moving forward, remember our children are looking, they're listening, and we need to emulate the behaviors that we hope that they can take on to make this a better world. And I trust and promise you that if you do that, you will make a difference in their lives as well, no matter where they're from. Thank you, Michelle, for sharing that piece about the love that your children have. And it brought chills because I thought about those children that I have taught in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, and I'm proud to say that I was part and I'm part of that movement. So thank you for this opportunity to share with you.
Not sure I can follow that up. That was absolutely awesome. I think for me, I am having a situation where I'm going back to my core. I'm really trying to challenge myself of what I really believe and what I want as a teacher for my students. And I think the other thing is that I'm going to keep it as simple as possible, as that I can know. I think another thing is that you're going to have plan B, C, and D ready to go as well, because not all of your kids are going to be able to get online with you at the same time. And some of them may not be able to get on Seesaw with you or Flipgrid or whatever. And I think that the most important thing is we need to give a whole lot of grace this year. I would like to say that I'm going to be as great of an educator as I have been the last few years. The reality is the new normal is very different, and I've got to give grace to myself and give grace to everybody else as well.
Well said. Yeah, I mean, anyone else we haven't heard from?
Just, I love these opportunities. You know, being in Kansas, we're kind of sheltered in some respects, and so I feel like I'm going to challenge I feel like I'm already an equity warrior, Paul, but I feel like I'm even more anytime I have these conversations with people across the nation, and it just really is empowering. And because at the end of the day, we have little people and big people that we are trying to create wonderful physically literate adults someday that are going to take care of us for Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare. They're going to take care of us. So we need to put them on the right path. And so I'm just excited to see everybody and just go out and have fun. And like Brian said, go be great and just do the best, you know, reach out to other people. I think that's been the best thing, is seeing everybody across the nation doing so many different things. And, you know, just, I beg, borrow, and steal all the time. And I'm going to keep doing that because we are a great community of PE teachers and just humans. We're just a good group of humans. So keep doing that.
All right. Thank you, Stephanie. So on that note, we're going to end here. Again, it was an amazing panel discussion that we had tonight. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I love these discussions as well because I always feel that I leave here more motivated and re-energized or energized. So another great night. Thank you guys so much. We hope to have another panel soon, and have a good evening.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.
Thanks all.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.
Be safe. Thank you.
Thank you.